Hello and welcome to Who We Ood, an unofficial Doctor Who watch along podcast. I am one of your hosts, Cameron. I'm here with my co host, Ben. On today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the big finish Doctor Who story, Spare Pots, while we are wrapping up Peter Davison's story. Not story, but Peter Davison's time in the TARDIS. Why not end it with his best big finish? Most people, I would say, would consider his best big finish. I've seen a lot of love for the Kingsmaker, and there was another one. But anyways, before we get into spare pots, Ben, let me introduce you. How are you doing today, Ben?
Doing all right. Uh, I don't know what's new. Still listening to Beatles.
Mm.
Watched the movie A Hard Day's Night.
Of course, Doctor Who Beatles has a connection. There's a whole episode, of course.
Yes.
Of course, they were in the chase.
Yes.
There might be a Doctor Who song coming up in the '80s period that you like that you might be able to look forward to. Um,
Okay.
but anyways, Ben, I'm gonna get right into it because this is
Yeah.
this is a big one, for at least for me, because I love spare pots. Where to start? All right, like we usually do. It came out July 2002. Is Do they have an exact date?
Some of those older ones, they don't always have an exact date. The TARDIS wiki says it says July 31st, 2002. That may be an
Yes.
approximation though.
Who knows? Basically, if you're a Doctor Who fan, some point around July, you
Yeah.
went to the shops and were like, "Oh my god, it's a new big finish," and it's with the Cybermen. Um, so yeah, it's number 34 in the main range. Uh, and it is the second story written by Mark Platt. Mark Platt, of course, is a classic Doctor Who writer. He wrote for the classic show Ghostlight, a pretty mixed story that has its defenders. I actually had never seen it, so I'm excited to get to it when we get to the podcast and see what we think. All I've heard is that it's one of those stories where you really appreciate it more the second or third or fourth or fifth watch. The first watch can be a little bit confusing and a little bit like what just happened.
Hmm.
Uh
He also wrote It
so
Looks Like Lung Barrow.
Yes, that was also his big contribution to the show is that he wrote Lung Barrow. Lung Barrow was, of course, what he originally pitched to write for the show, but then I forget if it was a budget thing or if it was just this is insane idea. Uh, they turned that script into Ghostlight. Because they obviously saw with Lung Barrow, like, oh, this kid has promise. Because that's another thing about Mike Platt is that he's a huge fan of the show. He's one of those guys that like in that 80 that Andrew Cotmel era that was like the first like fans writing for their show. So it makes sense that he goes on to do a very fan servicey
Mhm.
premise, which is of course we have Genesis of the Daleks, but we never got Genesis of the Cybermen. Why not do Genesis of the Cybermen with the Cybermen? According to we're gonna use a resource, Ben. According to we're gonna cite resources that we're gonna use this episode. According to Doctor Who magazine issue 320, uh, basically Gary Russell approached him and was like, "Hey, what about after he wrote his first big finish?" They were like, "Okay, you should write another one for us." And they were trying to figure out what he wants to do. If he wants to do a Paul McGann story, if he wants to do a Colin Baker story, and then eventually Gary Russell came to him and was like, "What about uh, Cybermen in a Genesis type story, and let's have it set between Earthshock and Arc and Infinity, so it's right after Adrix. You're dealing with that drama as well." And he went on to write it. He also mentioned in this article something I think was pretty interesting that he didn't want it to have a Davros type character. He didn't want this character to kind of the limelight in the story because, of course, Genesis of the Daleks doesn't really have that many Daleks in it, Ben. I don't know if you remember Genesis of the Daleks. It was so long ago.
Oh, so long.
But the Daleks aren't really present in it. Majority of that story, it's Davros. So he didn't want that to happen in the spare pots. So that's why in spare pots, the Cybermen are more prominent. Of course, you get some like the Doctorman Allan in as well as the committee, but nothing is quite on the level of a Davros. Would you say so?
Agreed, yeah. The Doctorman Allan is kind of the progenitor.
She's the closest thing you have.
Yeah, but really the committee uh slash cyber planner is the star of the show here,
Yeah. But,
or
not
the
too much
main
of a
villain.
personality. But, of course, that's just also the Cybermen in general. Like, you're not gonna have this big personality figure. Uh, of course, when they redo this in the show, they do it kind of a diversity thing. But that's also something I should point out now is that, of course, one of the big things about Spare Pots is that it is such a love story that there's two New Who stories that's heavily influenced by Spare Pots. Those being, of course, Age of I'm sorry, Rise of Steel and Age of Cybermen. Or sorry, I got that confused. Let me just make sure. I'm kind of blank. Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel, as well as it has a little bit of influence on World Enough in Time. Uh, so I both really love those two stories. I have I have a lot of love for Rise of Cybermen and Avenger still. I understand its flaws. We will get to it when we get to it, but I think
Mhm.
for the most part, it's a fun reinvention of the Cybermen. And then World Enough in Time is just an excellent story. And I think it very smartly does a lot of things about spare parts, but does it in a way that it does never makes spare parts not canon. I think that's also another thing that's a testament to this story is that they could have easily done the new shows, could have easily done like, hey, yeah, we're just gonna do all that story. We're gonna tell the Mondasian Cyberman story, but they never did. They both Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies both had too much respect for spare parts to ever recreate it.
Hmm.
Because it's just that good. We do have a quote here. Sometimes I like to just point out when one of those two big showrunners talk about a
Hmm.
story or love a story. And in this case, Russell said that with the Holy Terror as well, which we will talk about the Holy Terror next Doctor. That's probably going to be the big finish we talk about when we get to Doctor Six. But Russell T Davies says, along with both of them, some of the finest drama ever written for any genre in any medium, anywhere. That's how high of a praise he had for Spare Pots.
Wow.
So yeah, I of course have listened to this before. This was one of my earliest Big Finishes. I always wanted to listen to Big Finish, but never had quite the access here in America. I never had a PayPal account, so getting it on the Big Finish website was always difficult. Eventually, at some point, I got a gift card that worked from like it was like a refund gift card that worked for overseas transactions. I was able to get like $20 worth of Big Finish, and this was one of the ones because even as a kid, it was like I knew that this was one of the big stories, Ben. Right? Like even you are probably aware that this is one of the biggies for Big Finish.
Oh, yeah.
That if you could only listen to 3 or 4 Big Finish, this is going to be one of the ones that you would want to listen to. Ben, I want to hear your general thoughts this episode, but before we get to that, Ben, give us a synopsis.
On a dark, frozen planet where no planet should
Ooh.
be, in a doomed city with a sky of stone, the last denizens of Earth's a long lost twin will pay any price to survive, even if the laser scalpels cost them their love and hate and humanity. And in the mat-infested streets around tea time, the Doctor and Nyssa unearth a black market in second-hand body parts and run the gauntlet of augmented police and their augmented horses. And just between the tram stop and the picture house, their worst suspicions are confirmed. The Cybermen have only just begun, and the Doctor will be, just as he always has been, their savior.
Dun dun dun. Good write up. Shout out to whoever wrote that synopsis.
Indeed.
So Ben, what did you think of Spare Pots for your first time listening to it? Of course, you have listened to Big Finish before, but only up until the time you've listened to it. Mostly the companion chronicles, if I'm correct.
Yeah, the way I've been doing it is as I finish a doctor's television run, that like unlocks their big finish for me. So I've listened to vast majority is first and second Doctor Companion Chronicles because the Companion Chronicles came out before the full cast adventure stuff. Because I'm going in order for each Doctor. A little bit of third and only one Fourth Doctor story.
Well, 2 that we covered on the
Well, oh
podcast if
yeah.
you wanna go back to
I
more.
was
If
thinking
you are curious about more Big Finish coverage, we have Festival of Death and then Filth in the Future. We have that linked somewhere.
uh no, it's Festival of Death is the book.
Yes, Festival of Death is the book. It is oh my god, why am I having a blank? Valley of Death.
Yes.
Valley of Death. So yeah, if you wanna hear our thoughts about Valley of Death and Filth in the Future,
It's up
click the
there.
link down below or click wherever if I remember to give Ben the timestamp.
Um yeah. With the exceptions to that rule being for the podcast. Um so most of my stuff has been like not full cast. The only full cast was
Yeah.
those Fourth Doctor stories. Um
Which majority of Big Finish that people care about. It's the full cast stuff, of course.
yes. I'm always impressed and it holds true for this with their full cast stuff that they really paint a great picture of the world just through
Mhm.
dialogue and sound effects.
Yeah. Especially sound effects when you consider this is only like the 34th story that they've done for
Yeah,
this own
this
universe.
is really early in the Big Finish chronology for them to have something that's really this good.
Also, want to point out before we get too much into your thoughts of the episode, something that you texted me about um, was one if you listen to this and this is your first time listening to the Big Finish, you're like, why is Tom Baker's theme playing? Uh,
Yes.
they for the first like 39 releases, they used the original or the second, third, and fourth Doctor theme, the iconic Doctor Who theme,
Yeah.
instead of the era in particular ones. So it's always a little bit jarring to be like, this is not. It doesn't feel right. It's like the nails on chalkboard. You're like, no, stop it, Big Finish.
Yeah, I want, the lead in and the like crash at the end to be appropriate for the era for it to really fit. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's noteworthy because all the other Big Finish I've been has been like
Yeah.
2007 and on, where that's been standardized.
Which also, I just want to point out that on the vinyl release, because they released this on vinyl in like 2018, 2019, they did fix it for that release. So if you really are like, if only Big Finish, if I only could listen to Spare Parts with the correct theme, you could for the low price of however much that vinyl is going on for eBay. It's one, though, I would imagine it's going on for way too much money because it was limited edition.
Maybe that should be my second vinyl that I purchase.
Yeah, for like $300. How much has it been?
Google Shopping does not pull it up, which is not a good sign.
Yeah, it would
Is
be
it
eBay.
on? But usually it pulls from eBay. Uh,
Yeah, but, like, it would have to be eBay, and then you probably would have to do, like, sold listings because there's probably not too many of them going out on the market.
okay. I only see one listing, which was sold a couple months ago for $669.
Damn. Screw the stock market, just get Big Finish vinyl.
Yeah, because it was like limited edition. There's probably
Yeah.
like 1,000 of them.
And also limited edition, and you have to remember that we live in America, folks, and he's probably looking at American eBay. American eBay is gonna be more expensive because we would have to pay so much money for shipping, and now
Oh,
we're gonna
it
lose
said like
tariffs too.
$60 shipping.
But no, but on the Big Finish website. So even when it was you could get them,
Oh,
I remember the shipping for them were through the roof that I was like, "I'm not doing that."
well, something else will have to be my second vinyl. I just don't know where to get them for cheap. At least ones that I want to own.
Yeah, your local record stores are the best route for that or flea markets or,
Because like I
um
went to thrift stores and it's like
yeah.
Christmas songs and soundtracks
Mhm.
and Christian
Mhm.
songs.
The we when we went to college, we had some pretty good
Or it's like
places for
$30
using
for
Big
something
Finish.
that
We
is
had,
actually
like
worthwhile.
Like, you remember, like, the malls we used to go to, like, the thrift malls,
Yeah.
you could get a bunch of records there. I don't know if you have anything like that around you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple places. Um, I mean, there's a record store here and a record store in the next town over. All of them are, you know, $20 is like the minimum asking
Yeah,
price,
yeah,
which is unless it's something I really want, there's
yeah,
nothing that I've been that desperate for vinyl.
yeah. My cat pissed on majority of my record collection, so ever since then, that kinda killed the hobby for me.
Damn.
Um, because I did have I bought my Radiohead records, I bought my White Stripe records, and it's just and I spent the 20, 30, $40 on them, and just when she pissed on all of them, I'm like, "Well, I don't have any desire anymore to collect more of this." Uh, but anyways,
Yes.
this is not a record podcast, this is Doctor Who podcast, so Ben, what's your general thoughts on spare parts?
It is really great. Um, bringing back, I mean, it's an origin story, so it makes sense, but bringing back the Mondasian Cybermen uh, is great. Honestly, from everything up until now, up until uh, well, Five Doctors, that's the last five one, right?
What do you mean? Yeah, that's the last that's the last,
Until like
Cyberman and
Attack or
till Attack.
something.
Yeah.
Everything, even the second Doctor Cybermen stories that I really love. Nothing has beaten 10th Planet Cybermen in
Yeah.
creepiness.
But also it's like, in particular for, like, Tomb and Invasion, I don't think the Cybermen are, like they're not, like, the best aspects of those stories. Like, the worlds that they create are, kind of what make those stories great. At
Yeah.
least Tomb great.
So seeing more and hearing the really great voices, which sound virtually identical, at least to how I remember them in the 10th Planet,
Yeah.
which is
Briggs
impressive.
does such a good job with them. Like, it is incredible.
Even, there's a couple variations, but they all sound like pre-existing.
Yeah, like, it's like that, like it feels wrong when they speak, you know?
Yes.
It's such a great idea where I wish that modern Cybermen speak not to that degree, but something like that. Like give me a little bit of that in the Cybermen.
Yeah. Where it sounds inhuman, not
Yeah.
just vocoded people.
It kinda also sounds like it hurts to talk
Yeah.
them
It
in a
always
way.
sounds like they're breathing in while they're speaking, not very unnatural. But it's great. Where to go? I
Yeah,
mean,
but,
it's
alright, so let me just say my thoughts, right?
yeah,
Um, I love it. It's one of my favorite stories. I love the world that this story creates. It does such a great job of just setting up that world of Mondas. Um, and just like there's some things about it that kind of irk me the wrong way, where it's like, it's just it's a little bit too much like, oh, this is like Victorian Earth or like modern Earth in some ways, where it's like I wish it was a little bit more alien. Where there's sometimes where it's just like, let's put the kettle on. It's just like I guess it's very English and very much like that's very Doctor Who. That is just it's even though it's this far away planet, it still has English customs. But like
I
I
think
don't know.
it works to have them, they were human. They are
Yeah,
human, but not for much longer. Having it be like, "Oh, they're Gleeglorp aliens and oh, now they're robot." Okay. But having it be
yeah.
really uh empathizable to the British audience, I think is important for this story to really work.
But I just wish they had more scenes like that one scene where he explains like their Christmas traditions and how much different it is from our traditions because it is a different world. I wish we got more of that in this story. Because that scene is so good. I would have loved a little bit more of like what was Mondas actually like before all this stuff happened and what were their customs and stuff. I think that's but for the most part, fantastic. The we get really only 2 examples, even though it sets up the world really strong. We only really get 2 examples in the story of this world. We get, of course, the Hartley family, and then we get, who is the name of the no, not yeah, we get the Hartley family, and then we get, Thomas Dodd. He's the other person that we get in this world, which is like we get basically the normal family slash characters in this world, and we get somebody that is on like the outskirts. He's doing what it takes to survive in this world.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think part of it is that, Thomas Dodd, he's this character who's a spare part vendor on it's very normalized in
Yeah,
this society. Oh, I need a new lung today. I'm gonna go pop down to the shops.
yeah.
And he is a little bit of a sketchy character, but I don't think
Mhm.
um, you know, possible dubious origins of these biological organs.
No, but
But
like
I don't think his
you
trade is necessarily
no, but he himself is a little bit like I don't trust Thomas Dodd. You wouldn't trust Thomas Dodd. Thomas Dodd is a character that you would sleep in the same room with him and wake up and you wouldn't have a piece of your body. He would just take it when you're sleeping. Like he is an untrustworthy character. He is a little bit he's a little bit evil.
yeah,
And the doctor knows that in him and kind of respects a little bit of that in him. That he is kind of like the Cybermen. That he is just wants that instinct to survive is definitely inside Thomas Dodd.
yeah,
Which of course is just the whole theme of the story. But um, let's just break it down from the beginning to end. I'm not going to go beat by beat, but let's just start at the beginning. Of course, we get a great opening where they both arrive. You can kind of tell that the doctor is a little bit suspicious that it's Mondas, and is kind of doing one of his things where he's kind of going like, maybe we should just leave. But then they do it's one of those times where very Doctor Who way they split up. So the Doctor meets Thomas Dodd and the Nyssa meets the Hartley family. The Hartley family is kind of a perspective into what a normal life is like on Mondas. We get the dad character who's uh, cybermat catcher, and we have he has a son and daughter. We get a little bit of history with that the mother recently passed and he had to sell her body parts to Thomas Dodd to have to survive in this world. So what do you think of the Hartley family, Ben?
they are good characters to kind of focus on. Each of the family members kind of have a different perspective on the world that they live in. The father is, half cyber himself. The son wants to. I suppose he doesn't know
Yeah,
the it truly will happen, but he wants to, you know, join the force and go out on the surface, which will require him to be processed. Uh,
but he doesn't know this.
yes,
So there's a great scene where he's telling his dad, "Come on, we got to do it. The blah 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 done it. We got if he can do it, why can't I?" And he's like, "I'd rather have a son here than like have like a basically notes saying that you're up there doing whatever you're doing." Which good dad. But of course then we get the tragedy of when uh when the sister character, Yvonne Hartley, eventually gets chosen, which she's kind of sick throughout the beginning part of the story. She's always coughing and she always is like very much a traditional character like this, where she's like, I need my pills. Just need my pills.
need some new
Eventually she gets
lungs.
chosen to be processed. And in that scene, I would say we get the most heartbreaking scene in all of Spare Pots. Probably the most heartbreaking cyber conversion that has ever happened in all of
I know
Doctor Who.
when she meets her father.
Yes. So basically, she gets processed. But during that processing, there's a power issues. So the processing didn't fully go through. So she starts to wander off while she's half well, she's Cyberman, but she's still halfway there.
Still has some
So
thoughts of
she's
her own, but
yeah.
only a little.
So she goes home, and it's the most heartbreaking thing in the world. Every single time, it gives me chills. It makes me emotional. She goes back, and of course, the Hartley family and Nyssa are scared of her. They don't know what to think of this monster, and eventually, she starts saying, "Dad, Dad, Dad," and he realizes that that's his daughter
Oof.
is this Frankenstein monster, and it's also when you're going back to what we were talking about before with the voices of these Cybermen being so creepy, works really well in this scenario where you can really it really adds to that tension of just like
Yeah.
she is the body horror of it all. Like I
Hearing
warned
her
you before this that
crying in
yes.
cyber
I
crying.
I warned you before this because you have in the past told me many times that you are not a fan of body horror. I warned you in the past that this is a story that has body horror, and this is what the scene I was thinking about. That it is,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely emotional, but I was fine.
but
It's
like
like the
just
alien, chest burster stuff I don't like.
yeah, or the thing where like it's your whole body is just changing bit by bit, and you're losing your humanity, and your air is coming off. But no, it's so scary. Like it's this scene would never happen in the main show. It's a clear example of early Big Finish. They had so much more liberty because they knew that no children was watching this, or sorry, no children was listening to this. So they basically had free reins to do whatever they wanted, and they could make really go full on with that premise of the Cybermen. And yeah, it's great.
Is slightly off topic. Is modern Big Finish a little bit less mature because the show is
Uh
on air and there are new fans being made every
yeah,
day?
like as you can imagine, the Big Finish has changed with the show, just because it's like especially the Eighth Doctor stuff, because the Eighth Doctor stuff is the stuff where the that's their point of view of like majority of the new fans are going to come to Big Finish for the Eighth Doctor stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a range where you can definitely see that it changed drastically once the new series started. I can't speak too much on the main range stuff because I haven't really listened too much on the main range stuff after the show came out. Um, but definitely, like, there's no Cyberman, there is no Big Finish stuff that at least I have listened to outside of Torchwood, which of course Torchwood is designed for that, and even
Yeah.
Big Finish Torchwood can even go even further than the TV show could, just because it really has no way. There's not even a limitation of like it's an all in audio, so they can do whatever they wanted. Um, but hey, it's disturbing stuff. I if we ever cover Torchwood Big Finish, there's one story in particular that I was so disturbed by. If you're a Torchwood Big Finish listener, you probably know the story I'm talking about. Uh, but uh, but yeah, I don't think too much of the new stuff, the modern stuff, is would go in this direction, even for Big Finish.
I see.
But really, it really does certify that like the premise of the Cybermen, because so much the Cybermen is just like a robot army. Let's say in a story that's even great like Earthshock. It's just like they're just a robot army. We don't get a scene like that in Earthshock.
Yeah. Sadly, the most interesting thing about Cybermen is that they were once human, and a lot of these stories, they're just robots.
But Spare Parts really gets that well.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
like so, yeah. So we already talked about Thomas Dodd. But yeah, let's talk about the Cybermats, Ben, because the Cybermats plays not a big role in this story, but it plays a role in the story. It gives us a little bit of an explanation of why the Cybermats are a thing. Um, the history is that like they were once a toy, basically that that the Mondasian children would have, like a something like a Beanie Baby. And they're like kind of like mice that were turned into Cybermen, rodents that were turned into these cyber creatures. And then the Hotley father has to. That's what he does for a living. He catches them, which is interesting that they would have to create That there's so much of a population issue with the Cybermets that they have that it has created a job opportunities. What did you think of the Cybermets spend the story?
I mean, it's slightly interesting having a little bit more backstory to them. I find it interesting, more interesting, I would say, that there's a whole range. Like they have a cyber bird, and this is a society that they don't have trees anymore. Even it's all been cyberized, and it's interesting how something once innocent is now uh a symbol of the cybermats are a another evil presence in the show.
Yeah.
I forget. I wanted to say if you get like bit by a cybermat, you turn into one. Did I imagine that?
I think you are imagining that. Like, there could be something like that in Nightmare and Server?
I might have imagined that.
Comment down below if we are just idiots that forgot or if that was an actual thing. So yeah, just to go back to like just going in order. It is interesting that like that's kind of like the first pot ends with them just both Doctor and Nyssa meeting up and just both being like, it's Mondas. Ah, and at the same point, that's when we get kind of like the drama of just the whole this is taking place pretty soon after Adric's death. So as that drama comes up where it's like it's still it's still something that's they both are dealing with, the grief of losing Adric to the Cybermen, kinda.
Yeah.
It is pretty much the Cybermen's fault, even though it's not. They didn't weren't actually the ones that killed Adric.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, the butterfly effect is,
yeah,
yes, the Adric would still be alive if the Cybermen did not attack.
yeah,
Um, I think an interesting aspect of this, we have a little bit of like a Genesis of the Daleks dilemma that the Doctor goes through,
yes,
where, you know, so much of the timeline is influenced by the Cybermen and their wars and all that. Um, we have to leave it as is.
hmm
And originally he just like, yeah, we just have to go because but he's tempted to stay and he does. And still always saying, no, we need to let their course stay. Um, and then he's like, oh, maybe they can change their own destiny. And then at the end there, he's like, screw it. I'm stopping these people.
yeah.
No Cybermen on my watch.
But then, of course, time corrects itself because, of course, the Cybermen
Yes.
have to
It's
go
it's
on.
fruitless.
Yeah, which we will talk about more of that later. But yeah, it's something that I think it takes advantage this story of where it is in the timeline. Where I think there I don't know if any other Doctor would fit this story as well as Peter Davison, just because one, his Doctor being so human works so well against Cybermen, and then two, just having it right be after Adric's death, so he's dealing with that hatred towards them. That's just like they are responsible for him losing one of his companions, which really rarely happens. Uh, so I think it's really smart of them to just pick this point in the timeline for it, and I like that they addressed at least the elephant in the room of Adric. And then I think they even mentioned in it that they haven't really even talked about it, which they of course
Yeah.
they did it in the show. But yeah, then the yeah, part 2 is like that's when we get the introduction to I believe that's when we get the introduction to Doctorman Allan, who is the kind of the creator of the Cybermen, her and the committee, the creators. There's also Sister Man Constant, who is an interesting. Before we get on to Doctor Man Allen, I want to talk about Sister Man Constant because she is an interesting character here, where she is kind of the person responsible for picking who is going to be processed or not. So she's the one that picks Yvonne to be chosen to be a Cyberman. So she knows that what she's doing to these people, she's basically killing these people and turning them into monsters. But she kind of has that like she feels like she has like the right to do that, you know? There's kind of an evil to that character, right? So do you anything to say about System and Constant?
Um, Not really. She's the one that is like reassuring Yvonne before she is processed, right?
Yeah. There's a great scene with her with the Cybermen. When the Cybermen basically the Cybermen are so what I was talking about earlier with Yvonne Cybermen leaving during processing. There's a whole batch of them that weren't processed. So she has to basically take care of them. And at some point the Cybermen that were from the plant surface comes down and basically takes charge and over System and Constant. And at the same time, System and Constant gets an injury, and then she has to fight against Cybermen to say, "No, no, don't. I still have a purpose here. Don't upgrade me." And she has that survival instinct of wanting to survive, but then of course the
Yeah,
Cybermen do what the Cybermen do, and makes her a Cyberman. Um, Another great instance of the story of using that whole horror body horror aspect of it so well, where the classic Doctor Who at a point stopped doing that really.
yeah. These people in positions of power feel like, you know, they're okay with it, but on some level they recognized how immoral it is. So they don't want it for
Well,
themselves.
I don't not me.
Yeah,
They can do it to Joe Blow, but me? Of course, that's the whole thing about the Cybermen that eventually no one is safe. Everyone is will be upgraded because everyone will be like them. Unless it's a story where the Cybermen will just want to kill everyone because that's what they are, because they're just a robot army. But anyways, um, a story like this, their main programming focus is to upgrade, which is I think what the Cybermen should be instead of kill. I think I always hate it when the Cybermen kill people because it's like that's not their main goal, you know? Like it is in their DNA is no, let's not kill people.
yeah. Even in
Let's
10th
make them pass
Planet,
out.
they
Let
were like,
them
"Yeah, we're gonna bring you all back to Mondas, and we're gonna convert you."
yeah. Because that's what they are. It's like anyways, so yeah, Doctorman Allan is like the creator of the Cybermen. Interesting character because she has that dilemma of being human while also creating this thing that is inhuman. Uh, Similar to Davros, but unlike Davros, she isn't like she's not like has this huge personality. She's much more of a normal person, just doing this thing that she thinks is good for people. Um,
Yes. I mean,
and there's
that
always that push and pull this story with her of just whether or not the doctor can convince her that what she's doing is wrong and what she could be better.
yeah. I mean, it's not her she has the I think mostly the best of intentions, you know? This is all in
Yeah,
service of the survival of Mondas. The planet is what is it? Careening towards a nebula, black hole, something. Mondas's destruction is imminent.
they yeah they are gonna die.
So they need to send people to the service and power the uh what do you call it? Thrusters, whatever. So this is for the survival,
Yes.
but it's going too far. Or is it? Is there are there other alternatives here? Or is this always has to happen?
Well, yeah, the alternative is that they just use the, like that's one of the aggravating things about the story is that at a point they're just like they end the story with just being like, "Oh yeah, we just put the fusters in full and did not use all these resources on the committee. And you know what? Guess what? We were able to move the planet, and everything's good."
Yeah. Yeah, towards the end there, I don't know. Yeah, towards the end of there, I don't know if it was, me zoning out or if it's the writing, but I don't know. I seemed easily resolved
Yeah, like especially since
ultimately.
like they spent all these resources on creating the Cybermen and creating the committee and stuff, and they just didn't think, oh, we should just all put our resources into moving the planet. But yeah, Doctorman Allan. What was I gonna say about Doctorman Allan? But there's also I like that aspect of her character of always having to like fight against the committee. She's always the one that's the committee is always trying to put against the community is always kind of pushing more towards upgrading people and the survival of the people as being Cybermen. And she's always kind of pushing for more of like the town and making sure the city is all good and don't go forward with this whole everyone needs to be converted into Cybermen because that's
Huh.
just gonna make things easier. Root.
At one point, though, the committee does ask her, "What's more important, the planet or the committee?" And she says, "Well, the committee, of course. We need the committee to save the planet."
Yeah. Which let's just talk about the committee now. The committee, of course, is like this like what I got out of it. It's these like these this Frankenstein monster of like I forget how many people I think they said like 10 of the best brains of Mondas, and they all just basically are hooked up into this machine that's like they're all their minds melded into one being. Um and it has a very modulated voice. I think a little bit too much, I would say, for a audio only medium,
Yeah.
where sometimes it's like I wish I could understand what they are saying better, and it's not as headache inducing as
Yeah, I caught every other word, which maybe
but
that,
it's a cool idea.
yeah.
I like it's a realistic idea that they would say like, okay, let's do this thing where like we have all the best minds and put them all together and
Yeah.
like
And it's very easy to see how it, uh, progresses to, like, the cyber planners and all that, the,
yeah.
like, brains in a jars that they, you know, like, that are in the invasion and the wheel in space and,
Mhm.
metaphorical brains in a jar, just like
Yeah.
little boxes that talk.
And then, like, eventually so talk about let's just talk about the story in order. So, basically, the world is more and more crumbling. There's, like, a crack in the town that, like, some of, like, the cold air is coming in. Death is approaching them. At the same time, basically, the Cybermen it's getting more and more like a push for the Cybermen to start converting people. The people start to riot and do what people do. Um and then while the doctor's trying to save the day, basically, the doctor then meets up with Doctorman Allan, and there's a couple of great moments of when the doctor is going into like their main palace with when he's with Thomas Dodd. He has a Peter Davison has a great relationship with Peter Dodd. I would say this whole episode, or sorry, Thomas Dodd. This whole episode, they get along really well. And also, they have that great back and forth between each other, just because of how uh, I don't know what the correct word to say, but just how 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 uh how unflattering sometimes Dawes' character can be, is great parallel to the goody two shoes of especially Peter Davidson's Doctor. What do you think of their dynamic together?
Yeah, it works well. A little bit of a yin and yang. And
Yeah.
having the doctor uh be kind of paired with Thomas Dodd and having Nissa focus on the family, I think works really well here.
Yes. It works very well. And then at a point, basically, then it becomes the Doctor and Doctor Man Allen, and then and he has that back and forth with her, trying to make her see that what she's doing is wrong and change course. But eventually that stops being relevant just because the Cybermen are taking more and more in control. Um, and then basically, then they come up with a whole plan to basically to like it's the like the one of the weaker aspects of this whole story I would say is like we were talked about earlier is that the kind of the third act, the last part is kind of a little bit like what's clearly going on here because what they did is that they created this huge energy spike to get all the side mats there to destroy the committee. um and then basically then the engines turn around and the world saved. And then we get that little stinger at the end of basically one, we get Thomas Dodd as the Cyberman now. He got fully converted in the process, which is a little bit you're a little bit sad for Thomas Dodd that he had to be converted. But there's some fun moments there having to deal with the Cyberman version of him, right?
Yes.
Did you find that bit to be amusing?
Yeah, somewhat amusing, somewhat horrifying.
Yeah. That good middle between, but then of course then the doctor leaves because he's like, yeah, I'm not the guy that fixes things. I'm just here to save the day, and then I go. Um, and there's that little bit of like, oh yeah, it's a happy ending, but then of course it's not a happy ending because then Doctorman Allan sees that the cyber commander Zhang is actually behind her and still alive and is gonna make the community back again. And the Cybermen are gonna do what the Cybermen do. Something I want to point out before we end this talking about the story and get more onto like we still have to talk about the Doctor and this other story. But before we get into that, I do want to point out that there is one aspect of the story we haven't talked about yet, which is integral to the story, which is the Doctor DNA is the result of
Yes.
every Cyberman. Every Cyberman has a little bit of his DNA because there's something to do with his Time Lord biology that Doctor Man Allen sees. I forget exactly what it was. Do you remember what it was, man?
Uh, I think it's in particular the two hearts. Something with that physiology leads to a more robust Cyberman, less chance of rejection. But it is the Doctor that has led to the success of the Cybermen.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of a cop out scene where where Nyssa thinks the Doctor has been converted to a Cyberman, and of course we're all like Nyssa, don't he's not gonna get converted to a Cyberman. We all have seen Arkham Infinity, like he's gonna survive this.
Yeah. I mean, having I thought there was a good chance, honestly. Reversible, of course, but
Yeah.
have it could be an interesting, like, I don't know how much you might aware of this, Picard is
Yeah.
Borg for a while, Locutus, and then he is freed and, he gets all the parts taken out, but he's changed.
It's a very interesting idea that the Doctor DNA is a little bit with every little Cyberman. Um, like some of it's trying me is like, it's a little bit fan servicey, you know? I think it works in the aspect when you can think about Earthshock afterwards, where like this thing that he hates. He hates the Cybermen because he lost his friend. He really hates the Cybermen at this time because he lost his friend towards them
Yeah,
because of them. And now it's
and
like
in some ways now
he's
it's his
partly
fault.
responsible.
Yeah,
Like, I like that aspect about it. I don't like about the aspect of it's like, oh, making I always hate when they make the Doctor too important. Like, that's not my cup of tea. I like the Doctor when he's just a failed Time Lord. That
yes.
he's just a misfit. He's
The
just a
renegade
misfit.
and not the most
Yeah,
important person in the universe.
that's the Doctor to me. I don't want the Doctor to be the most important man in the universe, and this kind of makes it a little bit more to the whole thing of like he's so important because he is every Cyberman is because of him. It's just I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a little bit too nitpicky, ruining people's fun. But yeah, what do you think of Peter this episode when we're wrapping things up? General thoughts. What do you think of Peter this episode?
He is very good. Uh, at the start, I found it noticeable that he's 20 years older.
Yeah.
But I was able to kind of mesh the two in my head uh, without too much difficulty. I think it's a great performance. I would say that I think Again, this is the kind of story that his doctor is suited for. Particularly like the kind of final confrontation where he's waxing about, starts with hip replacements and breast enlargement or whatever he says. Where does it end? That whole dialogue of are they still human? Is especially, I think, a good kind of monologue for him.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. That monologue is great, and Peter does a great job delivering it, as well as like we talked about before, his relationship with Thomas Dodd, which is a lot of the story. Uh, it works very well with a very human like Doctor like Five. Peter just does a great job this story with the performance, and it's very much suited for his Doctor. I don't know how much this story would do with like the sixth or seventh Doctor. It really much fits, or even Tom. It's like it very much fits Peter Davison and his sympathy. Very much a sympathetic Doctor. This story needs that sympathy that Peter
Yeah,
Davison is able to give it.
sympathy and empathy.
But he feels bad. He feels bad for the Mondasian people and doesn't want this to happen to them. Whereas maybe some other doctors is that little bit of a twinkle of just like for instance, like there's in Genesis of the Daleks, there's always like, do I have the right? Like Tom has that sense of like there's a good chance Tom's doctor would blow them up, But Peter, Peter would never do it.
Yeah,
Peter's doctor is too much of a goody two shoes. So putting him in a story like this that has such a big scale and the stakes are that high is a very good fit. Where some other doctors, it's like, Sylvester McCoy would just blow the shit out of the Mondasian Cybermen, just being like, oh, who cares? The Cybermen's no longer a thing. But yeah, and then like Nyssa is also, I would say, very good this episode. Plays a lot to her strengths of a character as being again sympathetic and being intelligent, um, and not being a companion that's more like I'm gonna scream at every obstacle. Very
I don't
much
think she
is a
screams
determined
once.
character.
Or maybe
Yeah.
she might scream once, actually. But yeah, very definitely playing to her strengths.
And also, like, there's a friendliness aspect of to Nissa that I think Mark Platt not really explored too much in the show, but Mark Platt, I think, didn't pick up on it.
Yeah.
That she would meet a random group of people and they would be like, hey, come in, let's have a cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah. And her, immediately going for we gotta help these people, kind of paralleling Terminus in a way.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, I think she is also a good fit for this story. If it was like Tegan,
Yeah.
it would be very different. And I don't think that her
No.
relationship with the family would work as well.
No.
And thank God Adric's fucking dead, because he would not. He
he
would
would
have.
have he would have been working with Doctorman Allan to fix the side. Like the doctor would be in scanning to do the thing, and he would look over the scans and be like, I think what if we did this?
Yes, he'd be like, "Well, yeah, of course. The
Well, they're called the
technology."
Cybermen. There's not a Cyberwoman. Like we gotta help them out. Um, but anyways, so yeah, I think we talked about a majority of spare parts. I don't think we're missing out on anything. I think we
Yeah.
went over the big key points of the story. Um, the interesting ideas. I do wish that I could have had a little bit more of a setup for like yes, the end bit has a little bit of oh, the Cybermen's still gonna continue, but, like, I would've liked a little bit of, like, where are they going? Are they going to Earth and we're gonna do 10th planet? Are they gonna go
Yeah.
tell us?
I
Like
It seemed like that's what they were saying,
yeah,
they were going towards destruction, and, oh, they reversed it, and now they're going back
yeah,
to their original orbit, back to Earth, where they will meet a different incarnation of the Doctor.
yeah. I'm still, like I would love that gap to be fully explored of, like I don't think it's fully explored yet in Big Finish or any other medium of
The
that
true end of the civilization.
no, but, like, the Mondasian Cybermen what happened from the Mondasian Cybermen to the Tellus
Oh,
Cybermen,
that's true.
where's that connection? 'cause, like, I know because, the end of the I always get I get a sense from this at the end of this story that they everyone just gets converted. Doctorman Allan, like, right after this scene gets converted basically in my head,
Yeah,
and then they just start converting everyone, which, of course, is one of the things that's kind of so depressing about this story, even though it like, I like the cop out of this story that it ends a little bit with the happy ending, but it's a really dark ending because basically everyone dies still. Everyone turns or even worse, everyone turns into a Cyberman. Even, like, the Hartley family, like, the doctor doesn't save them from Mondas. They're gonna get converted into Cybermen. It's
it
just
was
a matter
all
of time.
futile in the end.
But yeah, Spare Parts is great, Ben. I don't know if you've heard of this.
It is. It's really great.
I do wanna point out before we do you have cliffhangers ready for us? I didn't write down any
I
cliffhangers.
do.
You usually do, but I don't know if you wrote it down because of audio.
I
Awesome.
did.
Um, so before we get to cliffhangers, I do want to point out that um so originally there was going to be a Five Doctors Genesis story. Did you hear about this?
Mm-mm.
So there was going to be one Kit Pedler, the creator of the Cybermen, were going to write it, but then they didn't go with it and ended up going with Earthshock instead. Uh, but let me see if I can find it. Because recently Big Finish did do the audio play of, like, the draft or the outline. It just came out last year, in March 2025. It's called Doctor Who: Genesis of the Cybermen, part of their, Lost Story season, having to do with Mondas. Let's see where I don't know where exactly this takes place, but it would have been season 19 because it has all of that season 19 gang of Adric and Nyssa and Tegan. But very strange that Big Finish, even after this, was like, "You know what? Maybe we should do that again." Any thoughts about Genesis the Cybermen?
Yeah, it looks interesting. I haven't listened to it, so I don't have much to say other than it sounds interesting.
I have a hot
Cliff.
take. I don't think it should. I'm a little bit pissed it still exists because we have the Genesis the Cybermen. It's called Spare Pots.
I mean, the Lost Stories. Most of, or I shouldn't say most. I think a lot of the later ones, in particular, they start to do more like alternate versions
Yeah.
rather than here's a missing episode. Like
I just
there's
find that so much
drafts of the Ark in space and Genesis of the Daleks,
yeah.
the Three Doctors.
I just find it less interesting. Like, especially when you get something like Phil from the Future, or you have like they did all of season 27, what could have been. It's like that's interesting. I'm interested to see what they would do with that stuff, or like especially with like I never listened to it, but like the Lords of the Red Planet, which is like the genesis of the Ice Warriors. It's like okay, that's interesting. What was going to happen with that? But it's like, do we really need to know like what Terry Nation's original draft of Genesis of the Daleks was?
Yeah. Oh wow.
But anyways,
Cliffhangers.
Ben, give us a cliffhangers.
First one, the Doctor reveals that this planet is Mondas. Nyssa wants to stop the creation of the Cybermen, but the Doctor says we can't. And the committee says, find the intruders and eliminate them immediately.
Give me your best comedic impression.
Find the intruders and eliminate them immediately.
Okay, I was more thinking like it's like one of the biggest problems with the story
I
is
mean, it's
like
hard to do with a voice and not a computer. Um,
I would come on, Big Finish. Give me the cut of this where it's just I can actually understand what the
yeah.
committee is saying at all times.
Two, there's like rumbling and booming. The cave is collapsing, and the doctor says maybe Mondas doesn't have a future after all. Three, Doctorman Allan realizes the Doctor's physiology is the perfect template for a new and improved Cyberman. And the committee says, we will survive. The new cyber race will be invincible.
Uh-oh.
What do you think is the best one?
The
for you?
first one. It's Mondas. Oh
One?
god.
Yeah.
Even though we all got this story and we all knew that it was Mondas, but it's still fun to be like, "Oh my god, it's Mondas."
Very true. So
Would you
Cam,
agree?
I would agree. So Cam, how would you rate spare parts?
I love this story. This might be my favorite Big Finish story that's not written by Robert Sherman.
Is it a 10?
But like we talked about, there is issues with it. Um, Basically, the committee's voice is the biggest one probably, and then the third act. There's some areas where I wish it was a little bit improved. It feels like a really rushed third act, especially when the whole rest of the serial is not rushed at all and is pretty much perfectly paced. Um, Definitely one. This is one of those 2 hour long Doctor Who stories where I don't know about you, but I could listen to this all in one sitting. I didn't, but I could have. Very much engaging throughout the whole thing. Would you agree?
Agreed. I
Um,
did it in 2, but easily. It's very engaging.
a great start for anybody who wants to listen to Big Finish. Um, hmm. So I gave Growth from the Future a 9, and I gave it's not Big Finish, but I gave Festival of Death a 9.5. Festival of Death is really good, Ben. Info from the Future is really good. It's harder, I would say, when it comes to these type of stories, just because there's not a lot to judge it off of. It's not like when we're doing it. A lot of times when we're doing our Doctor rankings, it's like, well, I can look at the other episodes and rank it against those other episodes.
Yeah.
But
When
so
it's
much
different
harder for these
mediums and
ones where
different
it's just like,
doctors, it's hard to
yeah,
draw a comparison. In a
I
vacuum.
think I'm gonna go 9.7. It's not perfect, but it's very close to it. I really love this story. It's very good.
I'm gonna do I'm gonna do a solid 9. Very, very
So
great.
you like Festival of Death more than this from the expanded media stuff?
Probably. I think I really need to I would need to watch spare I might need to listen to spare parts a couple times to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But right now, it's a very solid 9.
But, like, this is one of those weird ones where I have probably listened to Spare Parts 2 or 3 times where you're coming in with a fresh
Yeah.
view, so it's not like I'm very familiar with the story where you are like, "I don't know about this."
Yep.
Um, so join us next week. Is next week gonna be Twin Dilemma?
Next week should be our retrospective.
Retrospective. So join us next week for the retrospective, and then we got Twin Dilemma. Are you looking forward to Twin Dilemma, Ben?
Oh, so much. I'm optimistic. I know Twin Dilemma itself is not going to be good, but a new doctor is opportunity for a whole new show. Which Fifth Doctor, I I I could use something different. I think. Yeah,
But I
spoiler.
will
This
say
is
this about Twin Dilemma.
go ahead.
I will say this about Twin Dilemma. I have heard it's supposed to be interestingly bad. It's not one of those Doctor Who stories where it's just boringly bad. It's not an Underworld or Warriors in the Deep. Supposedly, Twin Dilemma is one of those ones where you're going, this is awful," but like, what is going on here?
I guess I'll look forward to that. But tune in next week for our big ol' retrospective. I don't know how big yet, but it'll be fairly
Won't be as
big.
bit long as Tom, but like,
Tom was a feature-length film there, but, it'll be at least an hour, hour and a half maybe.
and then join us in the next Big Finish we will do. I will declare it on this podcast. Will do Holy Terror next for Sixth Doctor. Maybe we'll do Miriam Conspiracy just so I can have Ben have a little bit taste of Ethan Smythe.
Is that their first one?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Peace out, everyone.